you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre McGuire is with me right here via audio as he treks up the East Coast to New Jersey. Pierre, how's the ride going, my friend?
Smooth as silk, Jimmy. Thank you so much for asking. Great show yesterday. Great job by you getting Paul Fenton on today.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Really excited about that. And I know people in Edmonton and Canadian hockey fans in particular are probably a little bit disappointed today. You have to admit one thing. The better team clearly won. It wasn't a little bit. They clearly won the Stanley Cup.
Pierre, I am so happy you said that, and you did text me that immediately after the game ended, but it was something that, you know, all day, all I see right now, and not just from Oilers fans, just from maybe fans that are cheering against the Panthers. Well, the Oilers gave up. They didn't show up, or they didn't do this. How about for once just tipping your hat, right? I mean, like sometimes you're just not, your team isn't the better team. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the end, the better team usually wins. And you're exactly right. That's what happened in this series. That doesn't take away from anything the Oilers accomplished up until the final. They were a resilient team. They deserve a ton of credit. But when you look at the tail of the tape and you look at some of the scores of the games that the Panthers won versus the ones that the Oilers won in this series, it's no contest. And, you know, to be honest, Pierre, you were right. I didn't believe it as much as it was going on. But now you look back on it. We're lucky this series got to Game 6. That's how dominating the Florida Panthers were.
I thought Florida was going to win in 4 or 5 games. I know I told you that before the series started. It really should have been. If you think about what happened in game number 2, you think about what happened in game number 3, you think about what happened in game number 4. Like these are all, some of them are Florida wins, but they got extended. Some of them are Edmonton wins that never should have been. So realistically, that could have been a sweep, but it wasn't. And I give Edmonton full marks for that. But here's something that's really important, Jimmy. It's really, really important. When you do the whole tail of tape thing with them in particular, talking about Florida Panthers, they're deep at every position, Jimmy. And I had a long talk with our good friend Scotty Bowman about 2.5 hours ago. What nobody's talking about enough is the internal improvement of the defensemen of the Florida Panthers. How come Nico Mikkola couldn't make it in St. Louis and couldn't make it in New York, but can make it in Florida? How about Gustav Forsling? Couldn't make it in Vancouver, couldn't make it in Chicago, couldn't make it in Carolina, but he can in Florida. You know, how come Seth Jones didn't make it in Nashville, couldn't make it in Columbus? People in Chicago quit on him, but he can go play almost 28 minutes a game in South Florida. How does that happen? Because they're getting coached. Yep. They're getting coached. Sylvain Lefebvre and Paul Maurice and all the rest of the staff. I know the forward guys, Jamie Compon and Ruutu, Tuomo Ruutu, they don't work with the defense. But all those guys are getting coached up by Maurice and by Sylvain Lefebvre.
Yeah. Yep. 100% true, Pierre. 100% true. And, you know, I want to look at the Edmonton side, Pierre, and I know it just ended. And there's going to be so much that happens between now and, let's say, August 1st. Who knows? But, and I get you say things can come out after a game, after you lose in the Stanley Cup final. When you're facing the media and you're a player, you're raw. You're speaking your true emotions. I understand that. And everything should be taken with a grain of salt. That being said, I thought the words that McDavid used when he was in his scrum last night, and they said, you know, what went wrong? And when it hit me, I went big picture. He's just specifically talking about the final. I want to make that clear. But he said, we kept bleeping trying to do the same thing over and over again. Pierre, for some reason, when I watched that, I just left that moment and I went back to last off season when they made their moves up front and they lost those guys to the offer sheet, and you kept saying the same word over and over. Do you remember?
Yeah. I said Edmonton became redundant. When they got Victor Arvidsson and Jeffrey Skinner, they became redundant as an organization because they were bringing in the same kind of players they already had. So that's what I kept saying. Jimmy, I told you that day one.
Yep.
And I don't know why they did that. You'd have to have Jess Jackson because Stan Bowman wasn't the GM then when that
No, he
happened.
wasn't. And Ken Holland
So
was gone.
And Kenny was gone. So you'll have to ask Jeff Jack, not you, but somebody will have to have Jess Jackson that. I don't know if they are going to ask him that or not, but that should be number one. But here's what I'm going to, if I had the opportunity, Jimmy, to sit down with, Leon Draisaitl and with Connor McDavid, and I would be like, I'm talking to you right now, calm, cool, and collected. I'd say, fellas, if you really want to take the next step, if you really want to get to the top of the mountain, you guys are going to have to sacrifice offensive productivity for defensive awareness and compete. And they can say what they all had the cute soundbite. Remember, we know how to kill penalties and block shots too. Remember that soundbite?
Yep.
And I was going, what a bunch of malarkey. They don't know how to back check. They don't know who to pick up. They don't know how to play in their own zone. They don't know how to establish inside-out forecheck. Everything they do is based on their athletic talent, which is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. If they ever had technical aspects to their game, the way Florida does, oh my gosh, these guys would be so good. But I want to add one other thing, Jimmy.
Yep.
This is really important. Zach Hyman not playing really hurt Edmonton. No question that hurt Edmonton. But I would tell you this. If Zach Hyman's not playing with Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, I can tell you right now, Zach Hyman is not a 50-goal scorer. Okay? So
100.
I'm going to say it in advance and say they missed Zach Hyman. But Zach Hyman offensively is an overrated player. Where they really miss Zach Hyman is forecheck, intestinal fortitude on the boards, slot area battles, and back checking. He's elite at all of those things. But he is not a pure 50-goal scorer, which he was a year ago.
100% agree. And now I'm going to ask you this, Pierre. We're talking about depth and we're talking about redundancy. If the Florida Panthers were to lose Zach Hyman out of their lineup, do you agree with me that they would not be hurt or as much or have to readjust their game plan as much and be missing as much grit and fortitude and all the attributes you just discussed? Pierre? I don't know if we lost Pierre. Pierre, you there? I think we might have lost him. We will get him back. No problem. And as Pierre mentioned, too, I want to tell everybody our guest today will be joining us shortly, probably in about 5 minutes. Senior advisor to the GM of the Florida Panthers, Paul Fenton. He's been in the game for a while. He's worked with the Predators in management, the Wild. He's worked with USA Hockey. He's done it all. And it's great to see what he's been able to help the Panthers do there. He's got a great eye for talent, and he has a lot to do with what the Panthers do at the trade deadline or with signings and other trades they've made. So he will be joining us shortly here on the eye test. We're trying to get Pierre back right now, and we'll get there. But, what I was trying to get to Pierre is, let's say Hyman's on the Florida Panthers, right? And you take him out of that lineup. I don't think it's as drastic a loss for the Panthers as it was for the Oilers, because the Panthers have depth in those type of attributes that Pierre was talking about that he wants to see out of McDavid and Draisaitl. Pierre, I don't know what you caught from my question here.
I missed you right from the start, Jimmy. So I know you were talking about Florida, and then I lost you. So go ahead.
Okay, so basically what I was saying, you were talking about what you want to see Draisaitl and McDavid and maybe the Oilers do a lot more of or get a lot more of in their lineup. And, that's more of the grinding, the physical aspect of the game, the defense. And I look at if I put Zach Hyman in that Florida roster, right, and they had lost him heading into the final, I don't think it's as big a loss for Florida as it was for Edmonton, because Florida addresses all those needs and they make sure that not only are they deep in skill, they're deep in all the different intangibles that help you win Stanley Cups.
Oh, absolutely. So I agree. The ironic part of everything you're saying is Zach Hyman was drafted by the Florida Panthers.
Yes, I
know. and so they decided to trade him to Toronto, and then Toronto, in their infinite wisdom, decided not to try to sign him.
Yep.
You can't make it up. You can't make it up.
Well, listen, let's go right to our guest right now. We've got Paul Fenton, the senior advisor to general manager Bill Zito in Florida. Paul, first of all, congratulations on another Stanley Cup.
Well, thank you. Very, very nice feeling today.
I imagine. Now, did you get any sleep? Because it appears the players did not.
I got more sleep this year than I did because I had my 10-year-old granddaughter with us and
Okay.
ended up having responsibilities to have some fun with her.
That's good. Well, hey, that's a special moment to have.
Jimmy, you know why he's bringing up the 10-year-old granddaughter? Because he's trying to show everybody how young he looks and that he's still able to be called a grandfather. That's what he's doing.
It's because he's Irish. He's an Irishman from Western
Paul,
Mass.
Paul, congratulations. The pride of Springfield, Massachusetts, Jimmy. You can't make it up. Paul Fenton. There you go.
Thanks,
there you go,
Pierre.
Paul.
Doing great yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Glad to do it.
Paul, we'll get into this series we just finished here in a bit, but I just want to go back. When you guys are approaching that trade deadline, how much was a focus on replacing what you lost on the back end there last year with Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Brandon Montour?
Well, they were huge pieces. You got to be honest with that. Both of them played so well for us and gave us that balance in our lineup. So I guess when we were going through free agency earlier in the year and we, picked up the likes of Schmidt and re-signed Kulikov, as Pierre knows from years of listening in on phone calls at various times during the year, the Seth Jones thing and reading all the publications that were going on, it made it much easier to call them and not insult them at the time. So that really led into where we were. The Aaron Ekblad thing presented itself. So it allowed us to put somebody who could play in your first or second pair and match up against anybody in the league for what we thought was a great deal.
Paul, one of the things I love about your organization, you've got yourself, who's a pure hockey man and a really good one at that. And what people don't know about is how competitive a player you were playing at BU for Jack Parker and obviously with Toronto and just how aggressive you were as a player. But also you and Rick Dudley, you're pure old school hockey guys that get modern hockey. How much does that affect your decision making when you're evaluating pro players?
I got kind of cut off there, but I think you're just asking me about how I evaluate players. For me, the biggest thing is character, and the second thing is hockey sense. I've always gone by those two criterias. For the years that I got the opportunity to work in Nashville and had my staff and was able to run the pros and run the amateurs, it showed us as a staff that was the way that you make a successful team go. And, everybody has different philosophies. Some people are willing to take risks, and risks are part of our business, but I really like to hone in on the character part of people and make sure that they fit with your team.
On that note, Paul, the other acquisition you made surely fit in those categories, and that's Brad Marchand. Had that been something that had been ongoing for weeks leading in, or was this sort of something that came together at the last minute?
Honestly, it was a last-minute thing. We certainly had his name on our list, not expecting it to really come to us. And when it did, there was absolutely no hesitation on Billy's part. I have to say that, Billy has huge guts. I'll use that word. I don't know what type of radio we're on, but he has huge guts. The way that he's able to evaluate something quickly as it presents itself, find a way to do things. And, you look at the last several years here, bringing in Kachuk, bringing in Bennett, bringing in Reinhardt, just to name a few. There's guys that have sat in this league for years and years and didn't have the guts to turn your team around. I mean, when we first got there, his chore was to make sure that he got a culture that he knew was going to make us very competitive. And obviously we were able to do that in year one. And, he deserves all the credit for reaching in and saying, I'm not trying to build this franchise. I'm trying to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's really cool about your team too, Paul, and you'll appreciate this as a former player more than anybody else. The internal development of your players is unbelievable. Look at Nico Mikkola. He's so much better. He wasn't good enough to play in St. Louis, couldn't play in New York, but he can be a star defender for you guys. And then, I'll go down the line. Look up front. Lusterinen. Look at Gustav Forsling. I mean, look at the development of Anton Lundell. I mean, I can go down the line. Look at A.J. Greer and how he's thrived. And I know your fingerprints on a lot of these players. I don't think enough was said about the internal development of your team, your players in particular, and the job your staff did. As a management group, did you guys see it that way?
Well, yeah, you got to give some credit to our coaches. Obviously, Paul and his crew are fantastic. And when we talk to them about players, and a lot of times we do, but a lot of times you don't. Billy has private conversations with them, but you try to find out what he thinks about a player and where they would fit. I go back. Well, I'll say yes. There's a lot of internal stuff that gets popped around. Years of doing this. I mean, you get fortunate too. Like with Gustav Forsling. I mean, I go back to the days when he was in Rockford, and I was in Milwaukee as their general manager for years and years. And I remember we started talking about him, and I said, I've watched this kid play, 15 times a year because I'm there. I cannot believe he can't play in the NHL and be a successful guy. That's one person, seeing him, and then everybody else says the same thing. And for us, the timing of getting somebody like him is just huge. But the best thing is that the general manager has the right blueprint. He's got the coach that's on page. And I'll go back to somebody that I've always paid attention to quite closely. A good friend of mine, too, is Timmy Burke, who's been with San Jose since '92. Timmy and I have talked about different players. And over the years, his philosophy, and I should know this because he drafted my son as well with San Jose, but Timmy would go to the coaches both at the minor and the NHL levels, and he would tell them where that particular player fit. And I find that we have the same mix here, that when you gave your coach something and told him where, why, and how he's going to be able to accomplish it, he would give him a fair opportunity to do that. It doesn't always go that way, as you know, in the NHL.
Paul, if you can go back to when you guys hired Paul Maurice as the head coach, then what was the feel around the organization of what he could bring to your team, and how much has he fulfilled that, if not more?
I guess we are talking age here, but the longer you've been in the league and have had the opportunity to watch this guy coach, when his name came up, me, for one, didn't have to talk to him. I knew him as a coach, saw how he had reacted, had played against his teams, had played against my teams in the playoffs, and I found that they were just so well coached and schooled that we couldn't get by them. So when Bill had the opportunity to talk to him and find out if it was a fit for him, it was for me. It was easy because this guy is that good of a coach and that good of a person that he brings out the best. And I listened to him last night. We're having a conversation, and he said, this is the best team he's ever had, that guys get along. That's going a long way back. And for him to be able to say that and wholeheartedly mean it, it tells you how good a person he is to be able to get results out of players.
Here.
Well, you talk about the organizational standards and the greatness of your group. It's got to start at the top, Paul. And I've known Mr. Viola for a long time. I know you're aware of him. You've worked for a bunch of different ownership groups over the course of your career. He's got to be considered one of the best owners in the National Hockey League. What does he do that makes him unique and different?
The first thing that I would say is the class that he exudes every night. When you meet him, he knows who you are, and he has care for you and your families. He genuinely cares and put everything on the line for this team to get to another level. Like he made a point to come over and give myself and my wife a hug last night and gave us the thanks of us putting in the effort as well. So for me, he comes across as committed, and that's the other part. For Bill Zito to have the ability to go out and do what he did, he's got to have that first and foremost support from Vinny, and he's had that since day one. So it speaks volumes, where I've been in other places that it doesn't always work that way.
You mentioned earlier, just to kind of parlay on Pierre's question here about Mr. Viola, you mentioned earlier how Bill, has the guts to change things on the fly and reshape a roster completely as he did. Do you remember, like, when he decided he was going to do that, what was Mr. Viola's response, and how much did he get behind Bill doing that?
I think Bill had the green light. He gave him his plan. The first year that we went there, and we made some moves that were like, they're pretty interesting to the outsiders. Like when we traded Matheson for Horny, Patrick Hornquist. I had a history with him. I took him with the last pick of the draft, and had the pleasure of having him in Milwaukee and then in Nashville for years. When Billy asked me about him, and I spoke to him about the culture that we're trying to bring here, I said, that's your number one piece. And now he continues to be with us after he's retired. A lot of times it's that initial transition piece that you make that starts that ball rolling, and that's the beauty of it. Billy just kept going to the next piece of brick and going up the ladder.
Yep.
Everybody's got their favorite thing to do with the Stanley Cup, Paul. I like to sleep with it when I had the opportunity, the honor of winning it twice. What's your favorite thing to do with the Stanley Cup?
My favorite thing is to share it with your family. I waited 42 years to touch that thing. We brought it to our house down the Cape. Our kids were there. Our grandkids were there. That started the day. And then most importantly, after that, it was the family that we grew up with. Not only my wife's family and my family, but the people that I grew up with playing in the Springfield area. We had a couple hundred people at the Captain's Golf Course, and we had a blast, including Pierre, one of our best friends that is no longer with us, Ray Sherrill. So I was with Ray when he won in Pittsburgh, and he came in. I still have the pictures of us together picking this thing up and drinking out of it. As you know, that mile-wide smile of his, That's what it's all about. I'm going to sorely miss him on this one, but I know he's looking down here and he's smiling at us now.
Well said. Well said. Paul, listen, we appreciate you taking the time. And will the cup make it
Hey,
back?
Paul, I got to tell you, that's
Oh,
that's
go
so
ahead,
well
Pierre.
said.
Go ahead, Pierre.
No, Jimmy, I just want to tell Paul that meant so much to me to hear Paul talk that way about Ray. But I'll tell you what, I know somebody that's really proud of you from the Springfield area, Paul, and that's Sheriff Ash and all the
Pierre
Ash boys. I'm going to share that with you and let you know what you said about Ray Jean was fantastic.
Thank you. But the Ashes are the best people in the world, too, or as we refer to them, the Hanson brothers.
Good stuff. Well, I hope the cup makes it back to Springfield again, Paul. Enjoy your time with it. Enjoy your summer. Keep it going, all right?
Yes, thank you guys for including me. Take care.
All right. Senior advisor to the general manager, Bill Zito, for the Florida Panthers, Paul Fenton, joining us. You know, that must be something, Pierre, as he said he went so long without touching that cup and winning it. Now he's done it twice in 2 years. That's going to be a hell of a feeling. I don't know if we lost you, Pierre. Pierre? I think we lost Pierre again. No problem.
You know what? Just to put it in perspective, because I'm very well aware of that, what Paul just said. Jaromir Jagr won it his first 2 years in the NHL, and he never touched it again.
Yeah, it can go both ways.
It just shows you how it can go. There's some guys that have been amazing players in this league that have never had the privilege. Exactly.
Yep. Just to, a little background on Paul for our listeners and viewers there, Pierre. You know him better than me, but I mean, I've seen him around, like, as long as I can remember being a reporter and being in that press box in Boston, I'd see him frequently up there. He's a great guy, really good guy, but just give us a little hockey background on him as a hockey guy and his history and how he's made it to where he is.
Well, he was a real good player at Boston University, ended up with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He worked his way up scouting. He was very, very prominent with the Nashville Predators organization, really one of the top right-hand guys to David Poile. He worked on a daily basis with Ray Shero, and he was absolutely right. He worked both the pro and amateur side of it in Nashville. That's hard to do, Jimmy. I've done that. Mm-hmm. And you're never home. You're on the road a lot, and it's hard. It's hard to keep them all sorted out. One day you could be in Stockholm, and the next day you could be in Charlotte looking at an American Hockey League player.
Right.
So it's really a hard way to make a living. But it gives you amazing experience, and it teaches you a lot of different things about the business.
Yeah, and it's so great when those guys that are lifers, when they get to do this and they get to have their moment with the cup. I love seeing that. And, there are a lot of guys. I could go through a long list. I'm just watching the celebration last night. Guys that people don't know about, right? Pierre, the trainers, all those guys getting to share that moment. You've been there. You know what it's like. And I don't know if you saw, I thought one of the greatest things I saw it this morning when I woke up, because it happened long after I went to bed. But I guess at around like 2 a.m, Barkov took the cup back out on the ice because he heard that there was still arena employees cleaning out the stands, because obviously a lot of stuff flew down. There's confetti. There's all sorts of stuff. It was probably their biggest cleanup job of the year. And he went around, he's waving the cup at them, thanking them and everything. And I said, that's what it's about. Like that, this team gets it, Pierre. And when you have a team like that, it's something special.
So when we won in Pittsburgh the first time, everybody was kind of going to Scotty and Brian Trottier to understand how to act, because nobody had really won the cup within the group. Nobody.
Right.
And so, there was a lot of discussion about it. And one of the coolest parts about it, Scotty said, share it with everybody. And he was right. So the security people and the trainers and all these different people would come in to the office where we had it. And, sometimes you might put a little adult beverage in there just so they could experience what the players and the coaches were going through. You think, you fantasize about it, putting your mouth to that cup and then taking a drink out of it. And when you do it, you're like, oh my, it's something it's almost indescribable, Jimmy. It's just an amazing feeling. It really is. And one of the weirdest parts about winning the cup, when you get it and they put it in your hands and you go to lift it over your head, you're all jacked up and excited. And then you realize once you get it over your head, it weighs 35 pounds. Like it's not like it's a featherweight. It weighs 35 pounds. And there have been some guys that have been injured over the course of a playoff run, and they can't hold it up because their shoulders are bad. They got to get it down and put it up by their waist.
I've seen that happen. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I was watching it with, I had her on the phone, my friend Judy, last night, and she just was in disbelief of that. She's like, how are these guys doing that after everything they just went through to pick that thing up and skate around? And so she's like, are they Supermen? Like, and I go, I just think I've never done it, but my guess from talking to them, and you were just kind of alluding to that, it's just the adrenaline. But when that adrenaline runs out, I bet you feel it then, eh, Pierre?
You do. The first year, I think it was more emotion for all of us, but we had one going away. We won game 6, 8-0
in Minnesota,
on the road. So we, kind of by the end of the second period, we knew we were winning, and so I think some of that adrenaline wore off.
Right.
But the next year, we were up 3-0 in Chicago Stadium, and the game became really tight because Mike Keenan pulled Eddie Belfour, and he put in a guy named Dominic Hasek. And the Blackhawks really made game 4 a tough game. We ended up winning, I think, 7-5. Mm-hmm. Dominic kept it close, but that game was tight right till the end. So we had way more adrenaline, I thought, in 92, whereas in 91 it was kind of, okay, we won. You know what I mean? We knew we had won.
I got you. And obviously the next big celebration for the Panthers, as it is for every Stanley Cup team, will be a parade. Pierre, what was your parade moment like? Do you have any special memories from that?
Brian Trottier sliding from first base to second base in the baseball stadium. There were 60,000 people there.
At Three Rivers?
Brian took the cup and ran from first base to second and slid holding the cup over his head. That's
and he didn't
one
drop
that
it?
I remember.
He didn't drop it?
He didn't drop it. No.
Wow. God
and
bless.
Then the other one I remember, we were all at Mario Lemieux's house, and Mario had a cliff in his backyard. And Phil Bork, our good friend Jimmy, dove off the cliff with the Stanley Cup sandwiched to his body, and he blew out the bottom of the cup. So if you watch the tape of the 91 parade, and it's a legendary story, it's in a lot of books, the cup is slanted, the bottom broke. So I think it was $32,000 to fix it. Everybody had to ante up. We all put money into the kitty. But yeah, so when you see the pictures of the cup in Three Rivers, it's kind of slanted. It's slanted because of the dive into Mario's pool from the cliff.
Yeah, I got to find the name of it. I'll Google it. Maybe I'll find it and bring it tomorrow. I want to get to our questions right now. But somebody had written a book. I remember my dad gave it to me when I was about 14, just about the adventures of the Stanley Cup and, the different things like that happened to it and how those dents got there and everything. And one of the stories that stood out to me, Pierre, was when the Canadians won at one time, and maybe you know this story, having been from Montreal. I don't know which team it was, whether it was the 70s or earlier. Somebody had a cup party at their house that was right on the St. Lawrence River. And, they were down by the river or whatever. And I guess they're just having such a great time that the cup was there, like down by the water. And so the story goes that, I don't know, about an hour later, the police call the party and they say, hey, somebody just called and said that they saw the Stanley Cup floating down the St. Lawrence River. And they had to go out there and grab it and bring it back. I mean, some of the stories that happen with this thing, it's amazing to me.
I would say that's a true story because I've heard that from a couple different people.
Okay.
I don't know what year that happened or what team that was for Montreal. But here's what I can tell you. When we won the cup the first 2 times, there was not a keeper of the cup like there is now with Phil Pritchard.
Yeah.
So when you got the cup, it was yours and you had it and you took care of it for that summer. They didn't have somebody traveling around with it all over.
Yeah.
And so it was a way different experience than what it is now.
Yeah.
But in the 91 year, the cup was lost in Tommy Barrasso's backyard in the woods in Western Pennsylvania. The guys just left it out there. They forgot they left it there.
I love it. Great stuff there. What a great job Phil Pritchard has too, huh? He's got a zillion books waiting there.
That's a great job, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen.
Let's flyer miles. I know that.
Yep. Let's talk about Betway. No more games to bet right now, but you can still bet on draft picks, where picks will go. I believe, from what I've been told, they might actually create a free agent future bet in the prop section there on the NHL page on Betway. So check that out in the coming weeks before July 1st. But whatever you do, you don't have to limit it to hockey. You can bet on any sport there. And when you go to Betway and you sign up as a new member, you can get up to $200 on your first bet, even if you lose. So go to that QR code right there in front of you, or go to the details section in the website to sign up for your membership and redeem that welcome offer. This offer is not available in Ontario. You have to be 18 plus, and you always have to bet responsibly. Pierre, would you be willing to give odds on Mitch Marner at some time where he ends up, or no?
I'm going to let you do the odds. All I know is whomever gets him, they're getting a 100-point player who I don't know why has fallen out of favor so quickly in Toronto, and people will say, oh, they never win because of Marner. No, that's not true. And so somebody's going to get a really good player, and he's going to go somewhere, and he's going to win a ton. And people are going to say, see, I told you he was a winner. And meanwhile, when he was in Toronto, they were killing the guy.
Yeah, he has taken a lot of heat there. It's tough to watch. He's from there too. All right, let's get to our Q&A. What do we got? Kevin McClafferty, from Jimmy's great reporting today, it looks like there could be an Islanders-Bruin trade where the Islanders give up some talent, whether it's Dobson or Paju, for the number 7 to draft Higgins. Good or bad move if it happens. Kevin, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing that they have been talking a bunch of different scenarios, so none of those are specific things that can happen. But as I reported, the Islanders and Bruins have been talking about that. Pierre, that Dobson, and we've said this a zillion times, we can't understand why his name is out there, but I heard it again. And I think if the Islanders move him, they're making a mistake. I don't know about you. I just think that they sign this guy. He should be part of the core going forward.
I think they're afraid on the dollar value. I think maybe the agent has spooked them. I don't know. But,
Okay.
you know, when I was talking to people when Lou Lamoriello was there, and that was the one thing that stood out. They were worried about the dollar value.
Yeah.
And so all I can say is Noah Dobson can play. If let's just say Higgins ends up in Boston, it's because probably the Bruins watched Boston College as much or more than anybody else except for maybe Montreal and Washington. Montreal because of Fowler, and Washington because of Ryan Leonard. And so, you know, Boston's watching the Bruins that is Boston College because of Letourneau, who's their first-round pick, who really had a tough time adjusting to college hockey this year. But I would say they were there a lot. They were there a lot watching.
And I want to just, I'm glad you just brought about how they could have a chance to get him at number 7, because a lot of the rankings now have him falling to 6 or 7, maybe even 8 in some of these rankings I'm seeing. But you predicted this, Pierre, and like I don't think people understand. I keep getting reaction like to the story I wrote for today, you know, and like why would the Bruins trade the seventh overall pick? Why would that pick be available? Why is this top 10 pick available? If you recall, for our listeners and viewers here who are with us every day, Pierre tried to tell you that this was going to happen because he's not trying to knock the players. It's just not viewed as strong a draft as, say, next year's is expected to be. And because of that, there's a lot of juggling and a lot of up and down of where these guys are ranked. And it's going to go right. It seems the way it's going that this could go right up until the draft. And so you're going to hear a lot of chatter about, oh, this pick might go there, because maybe guys are saying maybe we can do something more with this pick on a trade market for a current player. And that's kind of the gist of what I'm getting about the Bruins, where they're at least exploring if that pick could get them somebody that can help them next year instead of waiting on a prospect to develop for 2 to 3 years. So I just wanted to credit you, Pierre, because you nailed it. Because You told me right about now it was going to increase. You said right as the final ends, get ready. And it's been nonstop here. My phone's been bouncing all day. Like, there's a lot going on right now, so I just wanted to credit you for that.
Well, thank you for that. But I can tell you, your reporting has been outstanding. Your sources have been unimpeachable. And here's the one thing, Jimmy and I have different sources just because I deal with the coaches more often and I'm dealing with a lot of upper echelon management people. Jimmy's dealing with a lot of guys that really are boots on the ground, everyday people, and that's why we're so fortunate to get a lot of the guests that we get. But Jimmy, I'm so glad you said what you said. When I say that this isn't a great draft, this is not knocking the players. Most of these guys that go in the first 40 picks are going to play NHL games.
Mm-hmm.
It's just don't expect it to be guys that are going to be generational franchise saving players because
Exactly.
we're really not there in this draft. And everybody knows it. Everybody does. What I'm finding, Jimmy, and you know better than I because you're my social media person. We have so many people that want to go on social media and act as if they're draft experts.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is they're not.
They're not.
Because
They're
if
not
they were, they wouldn't be working on the internet.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say, Pierre, too, and I'm glad you said the word generational, and I think you'd agree with me. That word is being tossed around too lightly.
Oh.
And it's not fair to the players because it builds a false sense of expectation that some players are never going to be able to live up to, but they're the ones that are going to hear it from the fans or the critics. And I just think is media, I'm just speaking within my business and I'm urging my fellow colleagues, try not to toss that word around so much. There's tons of complimentary things you can say about a player, but that's at a whole nother level. When you say generational, I think Sidney Crosby. I think Alexander Ovechkin. I think, Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, players like that, or Gavin McKenna, who's coming up. That could be more in that realm, but I just think we need to stop tossing that word around so much.
I've had a chance to be involved with a lot of generational players as a coach, and they're very unique, and there are not a lot of them. Not a lot of them. Jaromir Jagr was one of them. Christopher Pronger was one of them. Mario was clearly one of them. Paul Coffey was one of them. I think Kevin Stevens, for that time when he was popping 45 to 50 goals a year, was one of them. You go around the generational player. It's hard to say, and you coach a lot, Jimmy. You coach Hall of Fame players that aren't generational players.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, they were great players. You know who, Jimmy, do this for me. This just shows you how we do our exercises sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what round Zdeno Chara was picked.
I should know that off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. You know how we do the exercise. Yep. I just want you to know.
He was picked 56 overall in the third round of the 1996 draft by the New York Islanders.
By the New York Islanders. And Jimmy, I don't need notes. I'm driving up the highway right now. He played for a team in Lexington, Kentucky called the Thoroughblades. How about that? He played for the Lexington Kentucky Thoroughblades. It's unbelievable.
I know.
Now I will tell you this. I'm comfortable telling you this. That man who was picked in the third round was a generational player.
Mm-hmm.
He changed the role of the massive defenseman who could shoot. He won 5 straight hardest shot competitions.
That's insane.
Think about all the things Chara did.
Yep.
Everybody wanted Zdeno Chara. Every team in the league wanted Zdeno Chara. They just don't make that many of them.
Yeah, and a credit to him too, Pierre, because I remember you. I think it was you telling me just about how people were down on him because he was too skinny or he was too lanky, kind of awkward.
Well, he's awkward as all get out. He played for the Prince George Cougars in the Western Hockey League. And I'm telling you, he took on all comers. But he was just gangly and awkward. But he could fight, and he was strong as an ox.
Yep.
And you just knew that at some point he was going to make it. You just knew he was.
Because you know what else too? I think helped him so much because he became, and maybe he already was, but he was a student of the game. Do you know what I mean? Like he always seemed to want to learn and improve, and you could see the different attributes of his game do so over the years. You know, even when he was in Boston, I saw him improve and improve and improve, and that was in the second half of his career. So, yeah, that's a perfect example right there. All right, next question. Juice _ 031 017. Pierre, not enough people are really talking about what your take is on Sam Reinhart. Is he an Olympic gold medal away from being in the triple gold club?
I think so. I do. I think Sam Reinhart will be on that team. I'm shocked he wasn't one of the first 6 guys picked for Canada, but it's hard to fault the Canadian group of 6. They're just phenomenal. You know, with McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, Reinhart, Braden Point. It's an amazing group of 6 that Canada has. I do think that he will be part of the Olympic team.
Pierre, just so you know, Pierre, he was actually picked. He replaced Mark.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh,
there
you go.
Yep.
There you go. So thank you. I didn't, but I think I mentioned all those other players who were picked. I thought Marchand was on that list. I guess he wasn't.
No, but I think he'll make it back onto it. He'll get there. But
well, then Sam Bennett is. He's gonna.
Yes.
I think the Americans will. I think the Americans will probably play Canada for the gold medal, and I think the Canadians will beat them again.
I do too. All right, next question. Murray McDonald. Hi, Pierre. Do you see Line playing the last year of his contract? And also, should the Habs trade his contract? What kind of return could they expect? Great show. Thanks, Murray.
But you know what, Murph? That's a great question.
Yeah,
I know the answer. It's a really fair question to ask. I don't know what the appetite would be to trade him, number one, but number two, what the return would be. So that's a very good question. I just don't know. If I knew, I'd tell you. I just don't know.
Good stuff. And speaking of the Canadians, happy birthday to Marty St. Louis today. I saw that it was his birthday. All right, next question. Big Bill, Jimmy and Pierre, now that the Stanley Cup finals are over, how soon do you, we kind of just touched on this, how soon do you anticipate trades, transactions taking place? If you go check out that story I did with Ken Holland, he still believes a lot of it will happen more next week. I'd say probably you're looking at like from Tuesday into Friday into the first round of the draft. But there's a lot, like I just said, Murray, there's a lot of chatter right now. And it picked up like literally as the game was ending last night, I was starting to get some calls about things. So it's picked up a lot in the last 12 hours. All right, next question.
I agree with that 100%, Jimmy. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. Okay. Juice again. Juice asks good questions. Between the last decade of back-to-back Stanley Cup champions between Pittsburgh, Tampa, and Florida, who had the best teams? It's a good question.
Right now, I'd say Florida. No, I'd say Florida.
I'd say Florida.
Has the deepest team for sure.
Yeah.
And Bobrovsky.
I think
Pierre, we were marveling at Bobrovsky. I say Florida.
I'm with you, Pierre. And I would actually, I don't know if you'll argue with me, because as you said, you're always a Penguin, but you're objective. If I did an order, I'd go Florida, Tampa, Pitt.
I would do the same thing. And I'd say part of it, not a knock on Matt Murray and not a knock on Fleury, but I think, Bobrovsky's proven how good he is. And I think Vasilevsky, for the longest time, proved how good he is.
For sure. All right, next question. Juice _ 031 Is it safe to say that Chris Knobloch was heavily outcoached by Paul Maurice? Heavily, Pierre? I don't know, but I think he was outcoached.
He was outcoached. We talked about it before. I said when you do the tail of the tape, there are three places where Florida stands out against Edmonton. Down the middle with their 4 centers, and then you look at behind the bench, just experience of Chris Knobloch. And then the third place where I think they really stood out was in goal, Bobrovsky versus either Pickard or Skinner. 3 places where Florida had an unbelievably huge advantage, I think.
Agreed. All right, next question. Excuse me, Mike. Pierre, you mentioned coaching adjustments throughout the whole final. After hearing McDavid last night, we already referenced that, yep, it seems like no adjustments were made. Do you think it's time for a new coach?
I'm not prepared to say that. Here's what I would say. They need to have a major end of the year debrief, and I'm sure they will. Just management and coaches, no players. And ask, if you're the management, here are the questions you ask. What'd you like about our season? What didn't you like about our season? And if you didn't like a lot of stuff, how can I help you as a manager to get better? And hopefully they tell you 3 or 4 types of players they need. And then it's your turn as a manager. Now, here's what I would say to you guys as a manager watching from above. Here's what I need to see differently from all of you as a coaching staff. And I would be very pronounced. And first of all, I'd say we need to figure out how to break down matchups with our star players, number one. Number two, our guys need to be way more responsible, especially our top end guys on the back check. They need to know where to go. And number three, our defensemen cannot be as haphazard as they are with the puck. They're way too high risk.
Mhm.
That's things you can coach out of them, those 3 things. And that's what I'd do.
I like all that. And I'm just going to go on record and say, no, I don't think it's time for a change. I don't think he was the main issue. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, do you keep Marchand or Ekblad? I keep them all if I can, Randy. But if you're going to ask me right now on the spot who I think ends up going, I think it's Ekblad. And it's no knock on, I think they should let him go. I just think when it comes down to it, Marchand and Bennett stay and Ekblad's gone. I don't know about you, Pierre.
No, I think that if they could keep them all, they would. You just can't because we're in the salary cap era. So I do think Bennett's staying. I think Marchand probably will stay. He'll give him a little bit of a hometown discount. And I'm sure Ekblad wants to stay, but there's going to be a massive market for a player like Ekblad that can play the right or left side, can play huge matchup situations, that's really never had major injury.
No. Yep, we got you back, Pierre.
Okay.
Yep, all right, we got him. All right, next question. Brad K. Pierre, do you agree with what seems like the longer a series goes, the more the whistles get put in the pocket? Or are the rules well, I guess we'll just leave it at that. Do you think, Pierre, do you feel like the whistles get put in the pocket the longer a series goes?
Yes.
I agree. I do too. All right, next question. Franco, not since 2013 has a team won the Stanley Cup within the salary cap. Do you think this gets addressed in the new CBA? I think it was Bill Daly was on one of his press conferences at the finals, said that is a topic right now. And Marty Walsh told me it's a topic within the conversations for the CBA. I don't know what's going to happen, but it is being discussed. So we'll see what happens.
Once you create, hold on 1 second, Jimmy. Once you create rules in the National Hockey League, there are people that are really smart that try to figure out how to circumnavigate the rules. And that's what's happened with the salary cap. And so, Tampa was very good at doing it. Florida learned from them. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. And so they'll come up with other rules. They'll come up with other rules, and you watch. Somebody will figure out a way to circumvent those rules too.
And everybody will cry they're cheating, even though they're not. They're just doing better than the other managers. All right, next question.
Correct.
Franco, Bill Zito says he can bring everyone back. The numbers tests would say that's a lie. Who do you think is the most likely not to return on the Panthers next season? Well, I think, as we just said, Ekblad. And I think, Bill had just lifted the cup over his head, and he's pretty excited when I saw that interview. I think when he sat down, or maybe in a couple of days when things wind down, he'd be like, probably not. I don't think I can do that. Would you agree, Pierre?
I would, but here's the one thing I would say, I want to be prepared, and for people to be prepared. There might be players on that team that a lot of people think are moving on, and they're going to talk to their lawyer, and they're going to talk to their significant other, and they're going to talk to their accountant and say, okay, I have X already in the bank. Is X good enough if I take this? And if the accountant and the lawyer say, yeah, that's good enough, and you'll be pulling X the rest of your life, I'm telling you, Jimmy, they might be able to keep more than what some people think.
That would be something. And you're right. If they get the right fit. All right. Next question. Joseph Cohen. Question. Lundell is a young player with 2 cups. Do you think he would want a bigger challenge somewhere else to show off his true star potential? He's still the 3C long term if Bennett resigns.
Think about this for 1 second, and I mean this because he's one of my favorite players in the league, Jordan Staal. Jordan Staal did that in Pittsburgh, okay? After the 09 Cup, he won 1 cup. How many cups has he won since?
Mm-hmm.
0.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh's already won twice without him. You got to be really careful. If you're in a good situation, and I can speak to this from experience, when you're in a really good situation, it's not always about the money.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that right now. The grass isn't always greener.
Yep.
And you know what? What could be, and I've lived this, you're going to be part of a 5-year rebuild. Don't worry. I'm not pulling the plug. And 2 years into the rebuild, the owner sells a team and somebody else comes in. They didn't promise you it was going to be a 5-year rebuild.
Mm. Yeah. It seems that more than most dressing rooms, that dressing room seems to get everything Pierre just said there. That was a common thread throughout the playoffs. Whenever they were interviewed, why is this working for you? How are you guys doing this? It was just because this is what it's about. It's about the team here. It's not about the individual. So I'm with Pierre. I don't think so. I think Lundell right now is so happy. I don't know the guy, but if I was him, I would be so happy and say, you just put me wherever I want as long as I keep winning cups. So, all right, next question. Bill Van Viegel, any update on the Stars job search? I haven't, Bill. I'm glad you brought that up. Is Gerard Gallant getting an interview? I heard Kitchener Rangers coach UC Ahokas could be a dark horse. What about Todd Nelson? I haven't heard anything, Bill. I apologize, but those are all.
I think Todd Nelson will be one of the names in there, and I think Neil Graham will be one of the names in there. He coaches their farm team in Texas, does a real good job with them, has been for a long time. And there might be, you never know, there might be an assistant coach that worked with the Florida Panthers that might get an opportunity. So we'll see.
Interesting. All right, next question. FFFF, should Montreal offer sheet Voronkov, 6'5", 227 pounds? In my opinion, it would
Columbus.
Columbus. It take 10 million. Is he worth that? Could Columbus match that amount? No, not yet. Nope.
If I'm Montreal, I'm not offer sheeting anybody.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's a great player, and he could be worth that eventually. I don't think he's there yet.
No.
That's all right. Next question. Pierre and Jimmy, do you have a problem with Kane not shaking hands in the line, Evander Kane? I didn't like it. I didn't
like it at all, but I know what was going on. You could see it at the end.
Yep.
Kachuk was getting slashed by Kane. You know, Kane, there must have been some serious lip service going on with Kane.
Yeah.
Because all you kept hearing was about all the stuff that was being said between the benches. I think Wallman and Kane probably took a lot of the heat from the Florida bench, but those guys gave it back too. So I think that's what kind of inflamed everything. I'm really surprised there wasn't more reporting from inside the glass on that. I don't know why there wasn't, because it's such a valuable position. But I didn't like it. I don't like that. Hey, you don't have to say a word. Just shake the guy's hand and move on. You don't have to say you love him. You don't have to hug him. Just shake. It's it's the greatest tradition in sports. I think the handshake line in pro hockey. I think it's.
By the
phenomenal.
way, did you see who was back in the handshake line?
Yeah, Paul Maurice.
Anyhow, all right. Next question.
No, Jimmy. I give Paul credit. When Paul's right, he says he's right. When Paul's not right, I think Paul will recognize it and adjust. And do you remember what I said about why I like to be in the handshake line? If you're going to drop a game plan to go after certain guys in particular, I think it's your responsibility as a competitor who's not on the ice, who's not bleeding, who's not getting hit, but you're directing how the hitting's happening and the hitting's going on. you owe it to say, hey, I have so much respect for you and the way you carried yourself and the way you play. We did everything we could to stop you. And you know what? Hats off to you. I really believe in that, Jimmy. And so
I do
good for
too.
Paul for doing that.
Agreed. All right, next question. Renaissance Resistor. If Marchand signed with the Habs, would that not be the greatest villain move in NHL history? Well, the Panthers and Bruins aren't exactly buddies lately, so that was already kind of a villain move. But yeah, that would be interesting. I don't see him ending up there. I really think he stays in Florida. If not, I don't know. I think it could be another Atlantic Division team. But
It's going to be, Jimmy, you know this, Jimmy, think about 2011 Cup in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
All those guys wanted to stay in Boston forever, Jimmy.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to leave. And
exactly.
I can tell you, when you win in a place, you have no desire to leave. Like after we won in 91, I had some pretty significant offers, Jimmy. Some pretty significant offers. And I stayed for 92.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then there were a lot more offers after 92. And, I think about it now and I'm like, you know what, I should have stayed, but I didn't. So you live and learn. You live and learn. When you got a winning thing and you're part of it, you should probably stay there. If you can, you should probably stay there.
Agreed. And that's a great point you bring up there too, Pierre, about that. This is probably bringing back so much memories of those early years in Boston for Marchand and of that culture and of that wanting to go to work every day and loving being there and all that. Maybe, and I'm not knocking the current Bruins dressing room or anything, but things weren't exactly going well. It's not the same. And maybe, he hadn't felt that in a bit. Now you can see it in him. He's clearly reinvigorated. It's like, wow, I'm getting this again towards the end of my career. Why would he want to leave that? And like you said.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. What do we got? Any left? FFFF. Hello, guys. Will you continue with your broadcast now that the Cup Series is over? Pierre, we're going to do the last thing as last summer. I don't know if we lost Pierre there.
No, I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay.
Jimmy.
So I think we're gonna do the same thing as we did last summer. We'll go up until free agency, and then what we will do is go every Wednesday, like once a week. We'll take a little break right after free agency, and then we'll go once a week on Wednesdays until September. So we will be available at least once a week on Wednesdays. If that's a day we decide, we'll see. But we'll be on.
That's the day. That's the day we agreed to, and that's what we're gonna do. And we're staying on the air till the 1st of July. 1st of July.
Perfect.
Yep.
Love it.
Yep.
All right. Next question. Bill Van Vigo with will this loss allow people to write the narrative about McDavid that he's a good player who can't win, a la Marcel Dion or Gilbert Perreault? Pierre, we remember Ray Bourque was talking about this with us last week, and how much it meant to him to shed that tag when he finally won it in Colorado. I personally hate hearing that, but I understand it completely. It's just a part of sports. In any sport, there's superstars that go the whole time in their career. They never won it, and there's always that asterisk. It's unfortunately the way it goes. I think McDavid eventually will win it. Whether it's in Edmonton or not, I don't know. But I think he eventually wins it.
Here's what I do know. He won the Four Nations this year. Part of it, he scored the overtime winning goal. And he's going to the Olympics with Canada. And I think he'll have a gigantic Olympics. And Canada will win gold. So for those that are calling him a guy that can't win, that's a bunch of bunk. It's not true. He's a winner. There's some things they need to fix with the entire group. And he's part of the entire group. But they can fix those things, and they can be a very real team. Jimmy, you know what I said at the start of the year, and I just want people to understand. I respect everybody in the NHL because I know how hard a league it is. But I also said at the beginning of the year, Jimmy, I don't run with the herd, and the herd is picking Edmonton to win. And I'm like, they don't have a chance to win. And I remember telling you that because there are too many holes in their roster. They made the wrong moves in the offseason last year, and they didn't identify certain organizational needs that they should have. Mm-hmm. And I think that will get fixed with Stan Bowman there. I truly believe that.
And I'd argue too. I mean, and based on those points that Pierre just made too. And look, I picked him to lose to Los Angeles in the first round, so I'm eating a hefty some crow pie here. And I think I'm eating that crow because of McDavid. Like that team doesn't have McDavid, they don't get by LA. I don't even know if they make the playoffs. So I don't think this isn't on him.
No.
He'll get there. He'll get there. All right, next question. Bill Van Vagel, when will Hockey Canada Brain Trust select the rest of the team? Any room for newcomers like Suzuki, Scheifele, Hyman, Dougie Hamilton? Pierre, I believe it's like around early December when they have to name it? I don't know it for sure. Pierre?
Yeah, I do think Hockey Canada will make some decision. I also think that they'll have no problem putting in new guys. I don't think they'll have any problem doing that. They've done that historically. World Juniors, they've done it historically with World Championships. And so, yeah, you saw Porter Martone, who was there as a junior player over at the World Championships. So,
Yep.
yeah, I see them not having a problem putting new guys on. When they're going to do that, I don't know.
So right now what I'm reading is they have not set an exact date, but it will be early January. So probably right after New Year's, maybe around the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, producer Shane telling us right now, Andy Strickland reporting that Trent Frederick is about to sign an 8-year deal that will carry a $4 million cap hit. Pierre, your thoughts on that? I think that's quite a long deal for Trent Frederick, and I'm a huge Trent Frederick fan, but that's a long deal. Good cap hit, though.
That's a long deal on a very reasonable cap hit.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy would have the inside info on that
St.
because
Louis.
Trent Frederick's a St. Louis kid.
Yep.
And Andy is really plugged into the St. Louis scene, not just at the NHL level, but at the youth hockey level too. So he would know from the movers and shakers in St. Louis about that deal. Good for Trent. It gives him security. It's a tough job that he has to do. I think you would agree he was underwhelming this playoff season, and hopefully that he can get it back on track because I do think he could be a real good player for Edmonton.
All right, next question. Bill Van Vagel, why does the NHL keep wanting to go back to Atlanta? They have failed twice. I know it's a big TV market, but some cities just don't work and aren't good hockey cities. Give it up. Well, you said it right there, Bill. It's a big TV market. Money.
I'm not giving anything up in Atlanta. It's a massive marketplace. It's becoming more and more of an international vibe type city. A lot of Northeastern people have moved down there. A lot of people from the central part of the United States have moved there. It just continues to grow. One of the things that really haunted the two teams that were there previous, ownership issues. The league will not put a bad ownership group in there this time. No way. No way. So I don't think it will fail a third time, and I think it's going to be a very appropriate market for the NHL.
All right, next question. Jason Logan. Hey, Jay. With it being Malkin's last year in Pittsburgh, do you think they will sign him one more year, or is it over there?
No, definitely not. He's not getting signed. They've already told him this is it. He's got 1 year left in his deal. They're not signing him. No.
Yep. All right, next question. Mike, how important is it to bring in new faces into a cup-winning team?
Very, very important. Marchand, obviously, Seth Jones, obviously. And you look at the development, what Tomas Nosek did, what AJ Greer did, what Jonah Gadjevich did. Those are new guys. Mackie Samoskevich, who you saw skate with the Cup last night. He was another new guy that had a big season during the regular season. So it's important to have new guys in there. Absolutely. And, Vitek Vanacek, he was there helping Bobrovsky this year. Stolars was the backup last year. So it's important to bring in new blood all the time. You don't have to bring in massive amounts of it, but it does matter.
All right, next question. Big Bill, Pierre and Jimmy, do you think Edmonton's window will be closing next season to win the Cup, having lost in the finals the past 2 years?
I think they've got a little bit more time left on the window being open. The problem they have is the neighborhood that they're in. LA's getting better, and with Kenny Hall in there, they'll get better in a hurry. Anaheim's getting a lot better, and with Joel there, and Pat Verbeek there. They're going to be good. San Jose's getting a ton better because of where they've been drafting, and they haven't butchered their drafts. They've done a good job with their drafts. So their marketplace is tough. Calgary's not getting any worse. Minnesota's going to be a lot better. Arizona's going to be, or Utah, excuse me, is going to be a lot better. Vegas is always good. The problem for them is the neighborhood they're in is pretty tough.
Yep. Pierre, something coming down. I want to just wait a minute. I think we'll wrap it up in a second here, but Nashville Predators in the last hour, a statement from Preds captain Roman Josi. Roman Josi has been diagnosed with POTS. Oh, you already heard about it. I didn't see this. Toward the end of the season, he has been undergoing treatment since diagnosis and is progressing exceptionally well. We concur with Roman that he, with continued management and treatment, he can return to the ice for next season and resume his career. That's as well.
That whole story came out because he was named to the Swiss Olympic team, but people that knew about it, put it out there. Okay. So Roman is one of the really, not just a great player. He's a tremendous leader and a really, really good person. So I just wish him the best. I've known him a long time, and he's one of those honorable guys you like to see around the game a lot.
And look at this. Just a really great 24 hours for our good friend Matt Cater. I don't know if you saw this, Pierre. Reports circulating now that Ryan Donato has signed with the Hawks 4x4, so 4 years with a $4 million cap hit.
Yeah, so Matt, we're really happy for you and Ryan Donato and Bradley Donato, his wife, and young baby Charlie. We're really happy for all of them in the Donato family. So you can send the check to Jimmy.
All right, next question. Arild Kagstad, greetings from Norway. What happened to Evander Kane in this series after game 2? He completely lost his composure in game 3 and disappeared after that. Will he stay in Edmonton? Arild, you're dead on. I said that yesterday, and I said the only way he could redeem himself is if he went back to what we saw earlier in the series last night. It didn't happen. It got worse. He's one to watch, Pierre. I was wondering that too.
So
if he goes back.
But what we talked about, you may try to out macho Florida. You're never gonna. They got to him. They broke him. That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened. I talked about it before the series started. I said, if Edmonton tries to out macho Florida, they will lose, and they will lose big time. They will lose big time, and that's what happened.
Yeah, it's true. And by the way, too, more news. Nick Bonino announcing his retirement in the last half hour, Pierre. I know you got to cover a lot of his games. Always liked his play. He was huge on those Pittsburgh teams.
He was huge on the Avon Old Farms teams. He played for John Gardner there. Watched him play at BU. He played in so many different cities. He was a great face-off guy, elite penalty killer, shot blocker, checker, character guy. Easy to like, very easy to like on the broadcast side because he never let you down. And on the coaching side, he'd do exactly what he was told. So great career. Another one of those BU guys that just keeps doing well. It's amazing how many good BU players are out there.
All right. We got any more? We got one more here. Ian Lewis. Will Kent Hughes make another completely unforeseen, obscure move out of left field and shock and awe Habs Nation? I think the Canadians are going to be very busy. What they do, I don't know yet. Obviously, 2C is the big target, but I do think they're going to be a fun team to watch this offseason, Pierre. So, any more questions? I think that's it. We're done. We are done. Great show there.
Good job, Jimmy. That was a ton of fun. Good job, Jimmy. Thank you.
Get home. Get there safe, Pierre. Thank you. We appreciate it. Pierre McGuire joining us here on the eye test.
Talk to you. Bye.
And big thanks to senior advisor to the general manager for the Florida Panthers and now two-time Stanley Cup champion after going 42 years without winning it, Paul Fenton from Springfield, Mass., a place I once lived in and very familiar with. Good for him. Thanks to him for joining us. Thanks to Shane for working the boards. Thanks to all of you for your questions and everyone listening and watching. This has been another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.